ਰੱਖਣਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਵੇਖਿਆ ਵਾ ਕਿ ਵਿਆਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਬਾਅਦ 'ਚ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਅਤੇ ਡਾਈਵੋਰਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ। ਬੱਚੇ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਹਾਰਦੇ। ਉਹ ਮਾਪੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਖੁਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਖੇੜਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿਆਹ ਕੀਤੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਪੂਰੀਆਂ ਖੁਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਖੇੜੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਾਣ ਸਕਦੇ। ਅਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਲਾਅ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਵਕੀਲ ਆ ਇਸ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਲਾਅ ਦੇ, ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੀ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਦੇਣਗੇ। ਅਤੇ ਆਸ਼ ਜੀ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਸਿੱਖ ਚੈਨਲ ਦੇ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ ਵਿੱਚ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਸੋ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਏ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਮੈਰਿਜਾਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਵਾ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਦੇ ਜ਼ਮਾਨੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਆਏ ਹਾਂ, ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਆ ਬਹੁਤ ਘੱਟ ਡਾਈਵੋਰਸ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਬਹੁਤ ਪਿਆਰ ਨਾਲ ਲੋਕ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ। ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਦੀ ਪਤੀ ਪਤਨੀ ਹਸਬੈਂਡ ਵਾਈਫ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਗੱਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਸਹਿਣ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ। ਅਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੋਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਹੈ ਮੈਰਿਜ ਰੇਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਘੱਟ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੇਸ ਕੇ ਜਾਂ ਵੱਧ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਮੈਰਿਜ ਰੇਸ ਦੇ?
The statistics from the Office of National Statistics show that the marriage rates have fallen in the UK over the last couple of years, and that's because more and more people are living together. So cohabitation, which means when people, married couples or unmarried couples, more and more that is on the rise. So the marriage rates have fallen. However, the marriage rates have risen in the population between in the ages of 50 and 60 years old. So that demographic, the marriage rates have increased, and that's because more and more older people who have been married for 28 years, 25 years, 30 years have realized that their children have now become independent, they have flown the nest, they have nothing in common, and that they both want to go their separate ways. So yes, in that age range, the marriage rates have increased, but overall the marriage rates have fallen, and more people are living together. And you commented in that when our parents came over, it was the divorce rates, there was a taboo to divorce, there was a stigma against divorce, and that's very true. However, there's no longer the nuclear family. The family dynamic has completely changed. The family structure has changed. There's multiple families now. We have stepchildren, stepfathers, stepmothers. So it's a complete change in the family dynamic as well.
How can we control about this problem, marriage race?
So the marriage rates have fallen. Okay, they have fallen. So there's been a decrease, overall decrease, and that's because more and more people are living together. So, but if more and more people are living together, then my advice to them is to think about having cohabitation agreements drawn up, to record their living arrangements so they can enter into, or if they are unmarried couples are buying properties together, they can have a declaration of trust drawn up as well, which will tie in with the next question I think we're going to speak about, which is about when parents, mums and dads loan monies to their children to buy properties.
ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਇਹ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਸਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ ਵਾਧਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਵਾ। ਪਿਆਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕੋ, ਦੂਸਰਾ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਮੈਂ ਪੁੱਛੂੰਗਾ ਕਿ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਹਸਬੈਂਡ ਵਾਈਫ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਵਿਆਹ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਚਾਹ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਵਾ, ਔਰ ਬਾਅਦ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਹਸਬੈਂਡ ਦੇ ਵੀ ਵਾਈਫ ਦੇ ਵੀ, ਉਹ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਘਰ ਆਪ ਖਰੀਦ ਲਓ ਹੈਂ। ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਜਦੋਂ ਲੋਨ ਲੈ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਆ ਅਤੇ ਘਰ ਖਰੀਦ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਆ, ਅਤੇ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਜੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਡਾਈਵੋਰਸ ਹੋ ਜੇ, ਜੇ ਡਾਈਵੋਰਸ ਹੋ ਜੇ, ਹਾਊ ਕੈਨ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੈਕਟ ਦੀ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਆਪਣੀ ਮਨੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹ ਮਾਪਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲ ਸਕਦੀ ਆ?
So we are seeing more and more of these cases in the court, and they referred. There was a recent case as well in August that was reported in the Times about mum and dad taking their son to court because they didn't want their daughter to have half of the £1 million it was a £2 million case, but they had contributed £1 million, and they wanted to get their money back that they put back into the property, but the court found against them and in favour of the daughter because they had not registered their interest in the property. So it's very important if a mum or dad are going to give their daughter or their son monies to buy so that they can buy a property, because what we are noticing now is that at least 12 to 15 cases are coming to the courts in respect of these issues, and they're referred to as the banks of mummy and daddy. And what my advice is that if a mum or dad is going to say to their son or their daughter, here's £50,000 and to buy a house with your wife, then initially I would advise against it. But the problem is now that house prices have risen, especially in the south, and more couples, married couples, are finding it difficult to buy property, where they then have to step in and ask their parents to help them financially. So if the mum and dad are going to help their son or their daughter, then they should have perhaps a deed of gift drawn up, a deed of gift and also a declaration of trust. And the two documents, if they're going to have these two documents, the deed of gift should refer to make reference to the declaration of trust, and the declaration of trust should make reference to the deed of gift. What is a declaration of trust? This is a very, very important document. So if mum or dad are going to give £50,000 to their daughter or son to put money into a property, then it's really important that the parents protect their interests. And what they can do is they can have a declaration of trust drawn up, which is a legally binding document which records the financial arrangements of all the parties, of the joint owners, and also sets out the parties' respective shares in the property. And it's very, very important that to have this declaration of trust drawn up and then have it registered at the land registry, have it registered by entering a restriction in the title register to the property. That will then notify any third parties of the benefit of the respective shares and interests of those joint owners, and also the parents as well. Because if there is no declaration of trust drawn up and mum and dad just hand the monies over to their daughter or to their son, and they don't register their interest, then it's very, very, very likely that if then they do end up divorcing the son, the wife and the son, then it's very unlikely that they'll be able to recover their money because they've not protected their interest.
ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਹੈ, ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਹਸਬੈਂਡ ਵਾਈਫ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਡਾਈਵੋਰਸ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਤੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਰਾਈਟ ਡਾਈਵੋਰਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਘਰ ਦਾ ਉਹ ਵਾਈਫ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੈ ਜਾਂਦੇ, ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਰਾਈਟ ਵਾਈਫ ਨੂੰ ਦਿੰਦੀ। ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੋ।
Yeah. So when you have when a parties go through a divorce, you have to resolve the finances. And under English law, the starting point for the division of capital, capital means what the money, the net equity in the property. The net equity means basically how much the current market value of the property is, less the mortgage, less the cost to sell. Whatever the net figure is, then the starting point is 50-50. 50-50. However, if one party, usually the wife, where there are young children involved, are under the 18, then if she needs more than 50%, she will get more because of her needs.
Yeah. Surely. So, ਜਦੋਂ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕੋ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਵਾ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਡਾਈਵੋਰਸ ਹੋ ਜੇ, ਇੱਥੇ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਆ ਉਹ 50-50 ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰਟੀ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੀ ਆ, ਪਰ ਜੇ ਮਦਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਦੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਹੋਣ ਤੇ ਕੁਦਰਤੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਰਾਈਟ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਉਹ ਮਿਲ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਵਾ। ਤੇ ਦੂਸਰੀ ਗੱਲ, ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਜੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਘਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਖਰੀਦਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰਟੀ ਖਰੀਦਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰਟੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਖਰੀਦਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵਿਲ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਇਹ ਕਈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਾਉਂਦੇ। ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਦੱਸੋ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰਟੀ ਖਰੀਦਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵਿਲ ਆ ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਆ, ਕੀ ਇਹ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਆ?
Yeah, a will is very important because we cannot predict death. So I could walk out here tomorrow and if I get knocked, have a car accident and die, and I've not made a will, and I'm married, everything will pass to my husband. So it's called the law of intestacy. So whenever I have a client who comes to me, whether it's a husband or a wife, if they're about to start divorce proceedings, I advise them to make a will. A will is very important. If they don't have a will, they can make a will, they can instruct a will solicitor, and then what they can do is then have a will, so if anything does happen to them during the divorce, then whoever they've nominated in their will for their assets to pass to, it will pass to their beneficiaries. But very, very important, which goes back to the property issue. If they have a house, a family home, and if most husbands and wife own the property jointly, okay, they own it jointly. Most married couples own properties jointly. If they are joint tenants, this means basically if they hold the property as joint tenants, if something happens to the wife, then her 50% share will automatically go to the husband if she dies. If something happens to the husband, his 50% will automatically go to the wife. It's called the role of survivorship. But what they can do is, if they're about to go through a divorce, they can sever that joint tenancy. So they can sever the joint tenancy and become tenants in common. They become tenants in common, and then what they do is they make a will. They can make a will, and then in their will they can state that if anything happens to them, the husband's 50% share would go to his mum, his dad, his brother or sister, whoever he nominates as his beneficiary in the will. And with the wife, she can nominate whoever she wants her share to go to if anything happens to her. So really understanding how the property is held. If it's held as joint tenants, they have the option to sever that joint tenancy, become tenants in common, and then make a will. Very important.
So ਜਦੋਂ ਪਤੀ ਪਤਨੀ ਦਾ ਹਸਬੈਂਡ ਵਾਈਫ ਦਾ ਆਪੋ ਵਿੱਚ ਡਾਈਵੋਰਸ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਅਪਡੇਟ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਨੀ ਪਊਗੀ ਫਿਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਵਿਲ ਆ?
Yeah, regardless of, if you're married and unmarried, but it's very important to have a will in place, which is a will is a document which records your wishes and feelings as to, in the event of your death, if you do have property, if you have shares, if you have properties, what the money's in your bank accounts, you can state in your will who that money should go to. Very, very important.
ਸੋ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕੋ ਕਿ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਮੇਂ ਦਾ ਕੁਝ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਬਿੱਲ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਬਣਾਉਣੀ ਵੈਰੀ ਵੈਰੀ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਆ, ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਆ ਤੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਬੜੀਆਂ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਲਾਂ ਆਉਣੀਆਂ ਪੈਂਦੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਬਿੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਾਉਂਦੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੋ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਮਤਲਬ will ਲਈ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਪੇਪਰ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ, which paper we need when we make a will?
We need to instruct a will solicitor. So with my clients, I would refer them to a will solicitor so that they have a will. They will draft up a will, and then they will give the advice to the client about making the will and what they need to put, what terms need to be put into the will.
So ਪਿਆਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕੋ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਾਈ ਬਣਾ ਲੈਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ ਤੇ ਉਹਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਆਪਣੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਸਲਾਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਵਕੀਲ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਲੈਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਡਾਈਵੋਰਸ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਇਨਕਰੀਜ਼ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਡੇ ਬਾਈ ਡੇ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਹਾਊ ਕੈਨ ਵੀ ਡੀਕਰੀਜ਼ ਡਾਈਵੋਰਸ?
How can we but the marriage rates have actually decreased. That's what the statistics from the government show, that the rates have actually fallen because more and more young people can't afford to get divorced. Because if you think about it, people lead more stressful lives. It's expensive. People have children, childcare as well. Now, majority of husbands and wife, they both work to support you. They live in a joint income household. So really, the marriage rates have actually overall they have fallen, but they've increased in the population for 50s and 60-year-olds. But in that population, the elderly population, like the 60s, the 50s, the 60s and 70s, I'm noticing in my daily practice that there are more and more people of that age range who are divorcing because they have their assets. They've built up their money over the last 20, 25, 30 years. They have pensions, they have properties. Then it's easier. Those type of divorces are easier because there's more basa in the pot to divide. But with the younger couples, they don't have enough money in the pot. It's very, they will find it difficult to go through a divorce because there's not enough money to split for both parties. Whereas in a more elderly couple like 50 or 60s, then they have that choice because then they can walk away because there's enough money for them to go and rehouse themselves. But with younger couples, they can't afford to divorce.
So I mean to say, which one is better, arrange money or love money?
A love marriage or a
Yeah.
love, at the end of the day, it's, whoever with our culture, with Asian culture, yes, we have arranged marriages. Sometimes arranged, you know, through the family, I have friends who have arranged marriages and they have worked. Sometimes arranged marriages don't work, and sometimes with love marriages, people have love marriages because they love each other, they're happy, they want to get married, but then sometimes they break as well. And the reason why most marriages fall apart, and which I notice, is because of adultery. One party's committed adultery, they've had an affair. Or, for example, in Asian marriages, I've noticed if the wife, sometimes the wife comes to me, she doesn't get on with the in-laws and the family, the extended family, and she wants a divorce. Or sometimes because of the behavior of one of the parties. So, for example, she may say that the husband is very controlling, or she's been in a domestic, there's been domestic violence in the relationship. There's been financial and emotional abuse in the relationship. These are all factors that can lead, in my practice, that I find that a lot of wives or husbands come to me and say this is a reason for the marriage breakdown.
And you know, many British people living together without marriage.
Yes.
After a long time, they get baby. Baby is like a 20 year, 28 year after they get married.
Yes, so sometimes you can have people who have been living together for many, many years. They're not married, they're unmarried. So you could have like some a boyfriend, two partners, and they've been together for 10 years, and they have not been married, but then they decide to get married. And if they decide to get married, and their marriage only lasts, for 2 years, then the length that they were living together will also be included, and the time that they were married is also included. So the length of their marriage would be 12 years, not 2 years.
So, you know, before marriage, when we love to each other, the younger generation, they love too much to each other. What happens when they make a marriage? After they fighting to each other and they make a very quick decision about divorce. This happening in these days.
And that happens a lot. I think when our parents came and our parents worked hard, they, you know, for us, for their children. But today I notice that many couples, they don't work at it's too easy to get divorced. Too easy. They don't try, they don't consider counselling, relationship counselling, marriage counselling. These are all options that I think they should consider. And a lot of marriages and relationships break down because of communication, a lack of communication. So more and more people need to understand how to communicate. And that's why sometimes marriage counselling can be helpful, especially if people are having problems in their marriage. If they're having problems, then to discuss those problems with a marriage counsellor and then to try and resolve their problems to save their marriage. But
ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਆਪਣੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਬੜੇ ਪਰੇਸ਼ਾਨ ਆ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਬੱਚੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਏਜ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ ਇੱਥੇ ਉਹ ਸਕੂਲ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਕਾਲਜ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ 35 40 ਸਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਏਜ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ ਔਰ ਬਾਅਦ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਇੰਨੀ ਏਜ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ 35 40 ਸਾਲ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਲਾਂ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਵਾ ਏਜ ਜ਼ਿਆਦੀ ਹੋਣ ਕਾਰਨ ਹੈ ਵਾਟ ਡੂ ਯੂ ਥਿੰਕ ਅਬਾਊਟ ਦਿਸ ਮੈਟਰ?
For me, I think age is not is just a number. Age is just a number. Some people can get married in their 20s, some people can get married in their 30s, some people can get married in their 40s. We're noticing more and more people are divorced now, and then they are moving on and finding new partners, and they remarry. They're on their second marriages, and they have stepchildren. Or, for example, for me, it doesn't matter if you get married at 20, if you get married at 25, if you get married at 45 or 40. But yes, in our culture, there is a stigma where as you get older, our mums will say, "Oh, you're too old. No, how you going? You need to have children, or you need to have a companion. How will you find someone?" But I've noticed that more and more of my people I know, they're getting married later on in life. So a lot of women focus on their careers, with their jobs as well, and then they are then marrying later on in their 30s.
What is the reason in these time the lots of young generation girl don't want living with the husband parents?
Yeah.
That is a great problem.
That is a big problem, and a very, very big problem. And most
I mean to say they request to the husband, please separate from parents.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
I think that's a very, very good point. And a lot of I think women they prefer independence, and as I said earlier on in our discussion,
why they not get independent in the together with the joint family?
So if you when we spoke when I mentioned in my comments earlier, I mentioned that one of the reasons as well for breakdown is like when you have in our culture where you have the husband and wife living with the in-laws, and then the in the same house, and sometimes there's a lot of pressure on the daughter-in-law to do things. She may be expected to do the cleaning. She may be expected to do the cleaning, or she's confined to the house and she feels trapped. I find a lot of women...
You mean to say ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਦੋਂ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਸਫਾਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ, ਤੂੰ ਬਰਤਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਾਫ਼ ਕੀਤੇ।
That's a common problem.
That is why she want independent. That is not a good point, because cleaning is very necessary everywhere, although in house, although in company, everywhere. So parents give a good suggestion.
They give good.
So mean to say when they go to the separate from the parents, how they get clean? Mean to say you mean to say when they live with the parents, wife cannot say to the husband, please make a clean, like ਬਰਤਨ ਸਾਫ਼ ਕਰੋ, ਜੇ ਕਰੋ। ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਅੱਡ ਸੈਪਰੇਟ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਗੇ ਪਤਨੀ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੀ ਆ ਤੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਲਈ ਚਾਹ ਬਣਾ, ਤੂੰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਰੋਟੀ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ, ਤੇ ਇਹੀ ਇੰਡੀਪੈਂਡੈਂਟ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ।
No, I think it's just sometimes, like nowadays women are working as well. It's not just the husband who's working. So women come home, they're tired, they want to relax as well. They may have children as well. So I think if you're living all together in one roof, it's important to get on. Communication is important as well. But then also make a contribution towards the household as well. So
you have a good answer. Communication is very important because the both couple is working. Early in the morning, husband and wife go to the job. So lots of family, like husband say when wife come from work to house, he sit idle, nothing do. He think many of Asian husband to give order to the wife, bring this one, this. That is the main reason for the divorce.
There's an expectation, I think, on Asian, especially in our culture, on Asian women to do the cleaning, to look after the children as well, and to have the dinner ready for the husband as well. They say the right way into a man's heart is to have his dinner on the table.
ਸੋ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪਤਨੀ ਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਡਬਲ ਕੰਮ ਪੈਂਦਾ, ਕੰਮ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਕਰਦੀ ਆ, ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਘਰ ਆਣ ਕੇ ਬਰਤਨ ਸਾਫ਼ ਕਰਦੀ ਆ, ਖਾਣਾ ਬਣਾਉਂਦੀ ਆ, ਫਿਰ ਬੱਚੇ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਸਾਂਭਦੀ ਆ।
So sometimes that can be too much for one person. It can be too much. So I feel that the responsibility should be shared between everyone.
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਸਹੀ ਆ ਜੀ
Yeah.
ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ
Yeah.
ਵਾ ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਖਾਣ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ
Yeah.
ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਉਹਦਾ ਹੱਥ ਵਟਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਵਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੋਵੇ ਤੇ ਪਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਪਤਨੀ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਹੈਲਪ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ ਤੇ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਸਵਰਗ ਰਹਿ ਸਕੇ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਘਰ ਹੱਸਦਾ ਵਸਦਾ ਰਹਿ ਸਕੇ। ਪਿਆਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕੋ, ਇਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਵੀ ਹੱਥ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਕਿ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਦੇਣ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੀ ਧੀ ਸਮਝਣ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਨੂੰਹਾਂ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੱਸ ਸਹੁਰਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਰਿਸਪੈਕਟ ਦੇਣ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਾਂ ਬਾਪ ਸਮਝਣ। ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਹੋ ਗਈਆਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਜ਼ਮਾਨਾ ਬਦਲ ਗਿਆ ਵਾ, ਪਰ ਅਜੇ ਵੀ ਕਈ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਵਾ ਸੱਸਾਂ ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਨੂੰਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੰਗ ਕਰਦੀਆਂ ਵਾ ਤੇ ਕਈ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨੂੰਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਉਨੀ ਰਿਸਪੈਕਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੀਆਂ। ਜਸਟ ਲਾਈਕ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਨੂੰਹ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੰਨ ਲਓ ਵਾਈਫ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਵੱਖਰੇ ਹੋਈਏ ਆਪਾਂ ਸੈਪਰੇਟ ਹੋਈਏ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਤੋਂ, ਪਰ ਦੂਜੇ ਬੰਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਘਰ ਭਰਜਾਈ ਆ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਮੇਰੀ ਭਰਜਾਈ ਮੇਰੇ ਮਾਪਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਵੇ, ਮੇਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬ੍ਰਦਰ ਦੀ ਵਾਈਫ ਆ ਉਹ ਮੇਰੇ ਮਾਪਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਸੈਪਰੇਟ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ। ਸੋ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਇਹ ਸੋਚਣਾ ਗਲਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ।
Yeah, and sometimes you also have to think as well that if you have the husband is the youngest son in the family, there's an expectation that the youngest son will stay in the house with his mum and dad to look after his mum and dad in our culture as well. So he will stay at home and then he will bring his wife into the house and everyone will live under the same roof. So sometimes there is the wife in our culture, we know that as well. So, but yes, more increasingly now women want the husband to move out of the family home and have an independent home.
ਸੋ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕੋ, ਇਹ ਸੀ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਲੋ ਦੇ ਵਕੀਲ ਆਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਜੀ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਬੜਾ ਵਧੀਆ ਚਾਨਣਾ ਪਾਇਆ ਵਾ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਪੈਸੇ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਰੱਬ ਨਾ ਕਰੇ ਡਾਈਵੋਰਸ ਜੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਤੇ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਮਨੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀ ਆ ਸੇਫ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀ ਆ ਤੇ ਦੂਸਰਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਵਿਲ ਉਹ ਬੜੀ ਬਣਾਉਣੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਆ। ਤੇ ਤੀਸਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਉਹ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੱਥ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਵਾ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕੋ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਸਿਆਣੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਪਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੱਸੀ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਪਾਣੀ ਜਾਓ, ਪਾਣੀ ਜਿੰਨੀ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਲੱਸੀ ਪਾਈ ਚਲੋ ਉਹ ਵੱਧਦੀ ਰਹਿਣੀ ਆ, ਗੱਲ ਜਿੰਨੀ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਵਧਾਈ ਚਲੋ। ਸੋ ਘਰ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਖੁਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਖੇੜਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਪਤੀ ਪਤਨੀ ਦੇ ਹੱਥ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਆ ਤੇ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਦੇ ਹੱਥ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਆ। ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੱਸਦੇ ਰਹਿਣਾ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਵਸਦੇ ਰਹਿਣਾ। ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਆਪੋ ਵਿੱਚ ਖੁਸ਼ ਰਹਿਣਗੇ ਪਤੀ ਪਤਨੀ ਤੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਚੰਗਾ ਅਸਰ ਪਊਗਾ। ਜੇ ਪਤਨੀ ਹਸਬੈਂਡ ਵਾਈਫ ਆਪੋ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਫ ਦੇ ਫਾਈਟਿੰਗ ਟੂ ਈਚ ਅਦਰ,
it will impact upon the children.
ਹਾਂ, ਬੱਚੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਪੜ੍ਹਨਗੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੇ ਮਾਪੇ ਵੀ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਨੇ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕੋ, ਜੇ ਪਤੀ ਪਤਨੀ ਲੜਨਗੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ ਨੌਂ ਦੇ ਪੁੱਤ ਲੜਨਗੇ ਮਾਪਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਦਿਲ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਉਹ ਅੱਧੇ ਕੌਮ ਬਿਮਾਰ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਗੇ, ਰੋਟੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਖਾਣਗੇ। ਤੇ ਸੋ ਇਹ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਦਾ ਘਰ ਹੱਸਦਾ ਰਵੇ ਵਸਦਾ ਰਵੇ। ਇਹੀ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਵਿਸ਼ਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਲੋ ਦਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਿਆਰ ਰੱਖੋ, ਆਪਣੀ ਵਿਲ ਵੀ ਬਣਾਓ ਤੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲੈਣ ਦੇਣ ਕਰਨਾ ਵਾ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਹੱਥ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਸੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਕਰਦਿਆਂ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਕਰਦਿਆਂ ਕੋਈ ਗਲਤੀ ਹੋਵੇ ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮਾਫ ਦੇਣਾ। ਸੋ ਵਾਟ ਯੂ ਵਾਂਟ ਟੂ ਸੇ ਲਾਸਟ 1 ਸੈਕਿੰਡ?
If anyone needs any advice about making a will, or if any parents are about to give their children any money to buy a property, then please contact me and I can give them independent legal advice.
Thank you ਜੀ।
Thank you.
ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਕਰਦਿਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਭੁੱਲਾਂ ਚੁੱਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਮਾਫੀ। ਵੇਖਦੇ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿਆਰਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਚੈਨਲ ਜੀ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ।
जिंदगी तो मैं ते तू, जिंदगी तो सुख दुख, जिंदगी तो सुपने ने, जिंदगी तो सब कुछ, फिर कानू जिंदगी तो बेपरवाह होना, फिर क्यों अणमुले साहानू इदा ही खो